makes me think of my story. I grew up in a Christian household where the lines of right and wrong were pretty clearly drawn. My grandfather was a minister, my great grandfather was a minister, but teenagers and young adults like to test boundaries and find where they fit in. And I was definitely different from my peers, but not different enough. God was always a huge part of my life, but I could compartmentalize and I could rationalize thinking, saying, and doing things that I knew wasn't compatible to what I knew was a better path. And now, everything we've talked about so far, this sacrifice, transformation, I was taught these scriptures from birth. And I did sit down and count the costs numerous times, but the cost was always too high because the world out there was too attractive. And then the world changed on 9/11. And on 9/11, I lost many friends and coworkers in the World Trade Center. And I was supposed to physically be at a meeting that was canceled there a week earlier. Suddenly, the end of the world was a real possibility, and people had no answers for this level of evil. I cried for months as the individual stories of these victims were told, and I wanted to just help them. And I realized the best way to help everyone heal on a permanent basis in the kingdom would be for me to give my life to the Lord and let him decide how to best use me. And being baptized, I'll never forget what it felt like to be raised from the water with a feeling of being clean, being new, no more ick, starting fresh, and realizing my life is not my own, but it was bought with a price. And I never regretted it.
It's interesting to me, Julie, how your story is so different from Jonathan's. Jonathan's, the mess was within. Yours, the mess was without. And in both cases was opportunity to hear the call. So it doesn't come in the same way for everybody. And your story had this very personal attachment to tragedy and loss on such a massive, massive scale. And it made you think, I know you, I've heard you tell the story many times. It made you think about the fact that life is fleeting, but God's plan is eternal. Why would I spend my time on the fleeting aspects of life when I could serve the eternal plans and purposes, the restoration and reconciliation of mankind of God's plan? What a wonderful contrast and yet similarity between the two of you in your transformation.